Hey everyone, Carl here with Literate Lessons, and today we're going to take a look at some of the up-and-coming Pokemon for Regulation C now that we've gotten our first results-based tournament in both the regionals in Fort Wayne and the regionals in Sydney. There is a lot of data to unpack in both of those events, but you could definitely start to see some new trends and some old Pokemon kind of fall out of favor. The first Pokemon on this list is Gyarados. Gyarados has become one of the favorite water types in Regulation C, being a very strong answer to both Chi-Yu, Wo-Chien, and Ting-Lu, being water and flying, having access to that kind of deep coverage pool, being able to answer all three of those Pokemon fairly effectively. On top of that, it does offer the power of Intimidate and or Moxie, depending on which ability you want to run. Most commonly, they will be Intimidate, which means that you get to both reduce the incoming damage that you would be taking, while also being able to put pressure on things like Ting-Lu and Chi-Yu, respectively. The reason this Pokemon is starting to pop up so much, and the reason why I was so high on it way back when we were starting to look at some of these glow-ups, so to speak, is Gyarados being water flying is a very important thing into the overall course of the meta. Water types are very, very strong into the fact that Chi-Yu and Ting-Lu are some of the most popular Ruin Pokemon to play with, both being weak to water. Gyarados being that flying type means you don't have to worry about Okos from Ting-Lu or any other random ground coverage, and it makes it a very good pivot Pokemon. Add to the fact that most electric types are scared off by Ting-Lu outside of the very rare Iron Hands. Gyarados has a very solid place in this meta and has very few things to fear outside of a random Stone Edge or Rock Slide from like a Tyranitar or something. Next up, we have a Pokemon that's very near and dear to me, Baxcalibur, one of my favorite Gen 9 Pokemon. This Dragon Ice type saw a lot of play actually in Series 1 and some play in Series 2. But as we've gotten into Regulation C, the tick-up has started to happen for Baxcalibur as well, being that strong Ice-type presence that's able to answer things like Wo-Chien and Ting-Lu fairly effectively with just a simple Icicle Spear. Being that base 145 attack with a loaded dice, being able to hit that essentially base 100 power Ice-type attack is a very good thing into those two very bulky and kind of defining Ruinous Pokemon. Having access to other moves like Dragon Dance and then being able to Terastallize into whatever Terra type and have decent coverage you want, there's a lot of good things that Baxcalibur can do into this format. Looking at some of the things that you can do here with this thing outside of just Icicle Spear, Glaive Rush, Dragon Dance, there is the obvious Swords Dance if you're really looking to push that kind of attack advantage and you have good redirection, like say like an Amoonguss or a Pavilion of some sort. You can play Terra Electric, Terra Water, Terra Ground. There's a lot of options for Baxcalibur and can make it hard for your opponents to have a significant answer consistently, depending on your Baxcalibur set. Next on this list, Gamora is a Pokemon that we saw a little bit in Series 2 and 1, but as this format has started to develop, as coming from Series 2 into Regulation C, being that poison type, that strong poison type Pokemon, is a very powerful thing in the world of Flutter Mane being 50 to 60% usage at events. Having access to that Sludge Bomb, even against that very high special defense on Flutter Mane with choice specs, you can almost pick up a KO pretty consistently. Not to mention being able to do other things with like Power Gem and Earth Power to answer a lot of problematic Pokemon in the format. Its other big thing is Toxic Debris as an ability. If it's hit by physical attacks, it sets up Toxic Spikes, where if you get enough of those set up on your opponent and can force a switch or make an opponent take a Pokemon out and then force opponent's Pokemon to come in, you can essentially Toxic Stall them using things like Wo-Chien, Ting-Lu, and Gothitelle. It's a very nasty combo, and it's kind of the key component to a lot of these stall Wo-Chien teams that we've been seeing. So I would definitely keep an eye out for Gamora to tick up more in usage, even outside of the standard Wo-Chien stall teams. The next Pokemon is a combo part because we didn't see a whole lot of Sun outside of some random Torkoals with things like Great Tusk and other Photosynthesis Pokemon, and that's kind of still the same, but now that we're kind of getting into this Regulation C format and a lot of the Paradox Pokemon have kind of faded away, Lilligant and Torkoal have become a very decent weather duo to put on your teams, especially if you're playing things like Flutter Mane or Great Tusk. Not only does the Fluttermane, Great Tusk, Torkoal kind of core really synergize well together. You also get to have this Lilligant, Torkoal, Sun kind of style team, and you can really abuse things like Overheat on Torkoal with Eject Pack to force yourself out into maybe your Great Tusk at the end of a turn, and then now you have Great Tusk that is Sun boosted that's going to take out an Oko on whatever's in front of it because it can do that at +1 attack. Or you can pivot into your Fluttermane and have +1 speed and be faster than everything else. And there's a lot of cool synergies with Eject Pack, Torkoal, and Lilligant next to it. And overall, I expect this duo to start to see more play as the formats develop, because a lot of these Paradox Pokemon that we were seeing, things like Iron Hands, Iron Bundle, they're going to eventually get outpaced, and so it'll be a matter of using your Photosynthesis Pokemon to your advantage versus a lot of people playing Ruin, Stall, more balanced style teams. The last Pokemon on my list is more of a favoritism pick than an actual rising Pokemon. One of the big things that's come out of Regulation C is the power of priority moves. Things like a Terra Normal Extreme Speed Dragonite, Sucker Punch Chien-Pao, Jet Punch Palafin. All of these moves require priority, and having a Pokemon like Farigiraf on your team can really put the game back into a more balanced situation where you're not having to worry about all the speed control. Not to mention, Farigiraf's a pretty decent Pokemon on its own. It has a very high special attack, it has decent defenses, and a very high base HP. This thing will probably take a couple of hits to take out, even against the ruinous Pokemon that are so prevalent. Being normal Psychic isn't always as bad as it seems with the ability of Terastallization. You can tear it into a Fairy, or a Fighting, or whatever type you want to be that's going to avoid that Dark weakness, and then in this case, we have Dazzling Gleam to just deal spread damage to an opposing Ruin Pokemon, and eventually you'll get through it and break through it and take it out. Not to mention that Farigiraf has access to things like Trick Room, and Skill Swap, and Light Screen, and Reflect. There's a lot of utility inside Farigiraf's kit that you can utilize to your advantage, and can really power through some of these more bulky teams, or even use it as a very strong Trick Room sweeper. And that's all I got this week. I hope you take some of these Pokemon and start playing with them in your teams. I know a lot of them aren't the new flashy things anymore, like now that we have Ruinous Pokemon in the format and the Paradox Pokemon are here. But I think that most of these Pokemon should at least be explored a little bit deeper, especially as Regulation C starts to progress and move forward. Again, if you like what you see, make sure to do all that fun YouTube stuff for us. Like, comment, subscribe. It helps us out a ton. We will be back next week with maybe some new Regulation C experiments. I have a couple things on the back burner that I really want to try. Bye, everyone.